What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode from the TenSevenMMA MMA Show with me, myself, Huzaifa, and your boy, Justin Guitar Hero James. After a wild weekend of combat sports news, pretty crazy, most of it focusing around Jake Paul. There was a UFC Fight Night card as well, but we're not going to talk about that too much today because there's just so much going on in the world of mixed martial arts and the world of combat sports, including boxing, which is something we normally don't cover too much, but when you got Jake Paul and Mike Perry in the mix, it's just something we got to talk about, and it's a fight that we both watched. So, yeah, let's get into it. Also, just a quick announcement. We are going to be at Fusion Fight League again this weekend in Montana. That's going to be a lot of fun. So if you guys want to check out that show, again, you can check out the fights on Triller if you download the app. And you can buy them there and check them out there, and you'll hear me and Justin commentating. So that's going to be a super fun time this weekend. All right. So Justin, before we get into the mix, how you doing? What's going on?
Man, living the dream over here, man. Las Vegas, about 150 degrees. I'm looking. I got like 3 promotions just hit me up. We talked about my transition over to BKFC earlier in the week. That looks like it's coming through. Might be as early as September. Lloyd Cupcake Mix. We got Bellator vet fought Mike Chandler to decision. I'm looking to fight him October 14th. So I got a lot of stuff coming down the pipe, ready to get back in the ring. And honestly, like, without having a fight scheduled, it's hard for me to stay focused on life. Like, I just feel like I'm just doing whatever I want. I go out whenever I want. I stay out. But when I have a fight lined up or something to look forward to, I can really focus on myself personally. So I really always like to have something scheduled. If not, I'm kind of a loose cannon, kind of going all over the place. So I'm really glad I'm starting to get stuff locked in.
Yeah, I mean, we've heard a lot of fighters. Volkanovski is the most famous one, but a lot of fighters talk about this idea of wanting something to look forward to. Dustin Poirier's talked about, a lot of guys just having a goal. So I guess that makes sense. And I mean, BKFC is dope, but like I think a lot of MMA fighters are, I don't know if I should say afraid, but they're hesitant to do it because of the cuts you can get and the injuries to your hand. I mean, are those concerns for you? Or are you just like psyched up and ready to get in there?
Yeah, they're definitely concerns, and my biggest concern is my teeth. I got really nice teeth. I've never had braces. So honestly, above my hands, teeth are my biggest concern. But at the end of the day, I need to collect the payday, and I really think that I could become a BKFC world champion. So I'm gonna have Fortis mouthpiece. Shout out to Fortis, one of my sponsors. They do all my mouthpieces. I'm gonna do a top and bottom piece. It's gonna be like a prototype that they're the first to fucking around with, so I can protect both layers of teeth. My hands, man. I'm gonna have to start conditioning them different than I have before, and just hope that I don't break them.
And if you have a top and a bottom, I mean, I would imagine it's pretty improbable that you're going to hurt your teeth, right? If you got protection both.
I hope so. I can hope. I've never had any teeth injuries or mouth injuries in MMA or wrestling. But I know a lot of people get their teeth knocked out. Luke Rockhold had a mouthpiece in and still got his teeth knocked out when he fought Mike Perry. So, I'm just gonna hope for the best and roll the dice. Let's see what happens.
All right. Well, that is super exciting. I can't believe it could be in September. That's so wild, but I can't wait for that. All right, let's get into what went down this weekend. First, we're going to talk about Jake Paul dominating Mike Perry. This was a crazy fight. I know we both watched it and we kind of both touched base about it. So before we get into the mix, hold on, I had a video queued up. I just want to show a quick video. I'm not actually showing footage from the fight because I'm just paranoid that we're going to get something like taken down or whatever, but I'm going to show you this really cool video from Jake Paul celebrating after the fight with his family and everybody immediately after. So I'm going to show this and then I want to talk about this. And then also we got to talk about his call outs and all this crazy stuff. I mean, it's just Jake Paul's insane. All right, here we go.
Nice W. It wobbled him with the jab like
a couple of times. Literally, and I realized it. He was like,
I love you. It was a beat down. Out of control.
It feels amazing, man. All the hard work pays off. I'm happy we got the W and time to celebrate.
Yeah, let's go. Let's go! Looks like he just had an ice bath or whatever. All right. Anyways, so he just celebrated. They were talking about the use of the jab, and that was one of his that was the most effective tool in the fight. He had a really long, stiff, quick jab. And Mike Perry himself said that Jake was just too fast, too quick for him, and he couldn't keep up with the pace. We also saw Mike Perry walking forward almost in like a Muay Thai stance, which we've heard other boxers, like Francis Ngannou did something similar when he fought Anthony Joshua. And it's not a very effective technique in boxing, because I think you mentioned when we talked on the phone that it leaves you open or susceptible to a hook. So there was a lot of things that he did wrong. And in terms of the fight styles and how they matched up, it just looked like, I mean, Jake Paul, I haven't looked at the statistics, but it seemed that he was pretty dominant and landed, I mean, way more punches than Mike Perry. But Justin, what were your thoughts on the fight and the competition between these two?
You know, honestly, I thought the fight went exactly how I assumed it was going to go. Jake was obviously the much bigger guy, longer guy. He did a great job using his jab, keeping Mike from getting away. And that's the thing, you know, he kind of big brothered him the whole fight. He stuck him with the jab. He'd go jab low to the body, jab low to the body. Now, that's one thing that I didn't like a lot. I thought Jake looked great. He looked like a good boxer. I wouldn't say a world-class boxer, but he looked like a great boxer. He just beat Mike Perry. But, you know, like, man, I just, like we talked about before, just how the announcers were stroking his ego. Like, wow, he's jabbing him to the body, and then he's going over. Oh, like, oh, my God, this is mind-blowing technique. Like, it's so advanced. Like, Huzaifa, when we hold mitts, all right, hey, jab to the body, jab to the body. All right, jab to the body, overhand right. Like, I thought Jake looked great. I'm not taking anything away from it. Jake Paul has grown on me. The fight went exactly how I thought it was going to go. It's exactly how I said it was going to go. But when guys are talking about basic techniques, especially we got these commentators, these are professional boxers. These are real commentators that know what they're talking about. And for them to just, oh my God, I mean, he's setting him up so good. I mean, that's level 1 technique, bro. I mean, he did a great job doing a level 1 technique, but jab to the body, slip jab to the body, slip jab to the body, overhand right. Like, you're taught that on day 1, day 2 kind of stuff. So did I think he did a great job with basic techniques? Absolutely. But I just was kind of getting annoyed about how the announcers and everybody were sucking his dick basically the whole time, giving Mike Perry basically nothing. At one point, one of the announcers was like, oh, it looks like Jake Paul's having fun in there. He's playing with his food. And I just thought that was so disrespectful, because Mike Perry isn't a boxer. Mike Perry is a bare knuckle fighter. I didn't say bare knuckle boxer. He's a bare knuckle fighter, because boxing and bare knuckle are 2 different rule sets. Yes. And, you know, and when guys are getting in there, like, okay, again, Jake looked great, man. He's getting better every fight. And he's very, very powerful. He's very strong. And Mike said it afterwards. He's talking about, you know, the trash talk about him with Conor McGregor. And Mike goes, why don't you get in there and fight him? Because he knows Conor McGregor would have the same problems he had, because, again, the size difference, the range difference. Jake can stay behind that jab. It's like Big Brother. Remember, you know, when your big brother puts your hand on your forehead and you're swinging under him? That's what it looked like to me. And congratulations to Jake Paul. You know, he's come such a long way from being a YouTube sensation to he's beating credible fighters now. And, you know, I do think he does deserve some respect, but I don't think he deserves all the respect. And when I say that, I mean, these announcers are just, oh my God, he's so hot, he's so great. It's like, all right, he looks good. He looks really good, actually. But it's not, it's not mind-blowing stuff. And I know that Jake Paul cuts their checks at the end of the day, so I think that has something to do with it as well.
Yeah, it's a tricky thing. Like, I was trying to think of a similar comparison. It would be as if Dana White went into the UFC and had a fight, and then imagine how the commentators would have to treat Dana White in there, because it's like, wait, this guy hired me and I'm doing the commentating. So, you know, it's probably in the back of their minds that they can't talk too much negatively. Now, that being said, I do think Jake Paul looked, I mean, he just had a massive advantage. You could say, obviously, the weight difference definitely gave him a bit of an advantage, but just from a skill standpoint, the way he looked, the way he was standing compared to Mike Perry, no head movement, just kind of walking him down and getting a lot of shots. As he said in the beginning of the fight, he's like, I'm going to eat a lot of your shots. That's how I fight. It's all good. Bring it on. And so I do think there was a nice skill differential that was pretty apparent. So props to Jake Paul on that front. I went back and I watched his show BS with Jake Paul afterwards. Now, this is what Jake Paul said. Again, take it with a grain of salt. Take it for whatever it's worth. And I know we talked about this off air, and you said that you don't believe this, but he said he weighed in the fight at 212 pounds going in, and Mike Perry weighed in at like 196. Maybe Mike Perry gained a little bit of weight after that, but it probably not, because, you know, the limit, the cutoff was 200. So he probably fought right around there. So then we have like a 15 or 18, whatever it is, pound difference for what it's worth. But yes, we definitely had that size advantage. A lot of folks have talked about that and as really swinging the fight in Jake Paul's favor. But once again, I just want to point people back to remembering where Jake Paul came from. I made a video about it that released, I think, on Friday or Saturday. And just remembering, hey, Jake Paul was this little kind of small kid on the Disney Channel who all of a sudden decided late in life to pursue boxing. And this is all transpired in the last 4 years, pretty much 4.5 years. It was 2020 when all this began, when he had his first fight, second fight, and kind of started moving his way up. And when he first started calling out Conor McGregor, people thought he was insane, that he was going to get murdered. And now it seems to be the opposite. They're saying Conor shouldn't step in there because he's almost certainly going to lose because of the weight difference. So it's just cool to remember back to people being like, he's lost his mind. He's going to get killed. He's going to get seriously injured. To now us being like, yeah, Conor shouldn't go in there because it's unfair, because Conor's going to lose. Like, it's a trip. Now, I want to go to Jake Paul's call out after the Mike Perry fight. This was totally unexpected. I did not think he was going to do this whatsoever, but he goes in, and nobody in his camp apparently knew he was going to do this. He calls out Alex Pereira, which is an interesting call out for two reasons. One, it actually, now he's calling out somebody bigger than him, which he's again doing the same thing he's always done. People criticize him and he takes that call out. Number one. Number two, it's interesting because obviously Alex Pereira is in a UFC contract. He's probably the biggest rising star in the UFC. Like, there's no way this fight's going to happen. Even after he gets out of his UFC contract, I imagine Dana White is going to do something to ensure that that fight never happens, because I'm sure the UFC doesn't want that to happen, doesn't want Alex Pereira to even have the chance of losing, even though I think a lot of people think Alex Pereira might win that fight, but I think it's too big of a risk. So anyways, what are your thoughts on this call out? Again, combined with the fact that it's probably not going to happen.
Jake Paul's genius, man. You know what I mean? He's fighting guys that he has advantages over, and you know what? All the haters, including myself, because when the fight happened, I was hating on the fight the whole time it was happening. I was hating that I was watching it. But I think this is the reason, you know, there's so many haters out there, is guys like me are jealous. I've put my whole life into this sport, and I won't make a 1% fraction of what Jake Paul makes. And he's going and he's handpicking his opponents. Anyways, going to Alex Pereira, not to get off subject, but yeah, he's locked into the UFC. Dana White and Jake Paul don't see eye to eye. They don't get along. There's absolutely no chance that Dana White lets Alex Pereira go over there and chance of losing. Do I think Alex is going to lose? No, I don't. But he could. You know, and you know, there's a lot of guys that I didn't think Anderson Silva was going to lose. I didn't think Tyrone Woodley was going to lose. And they all have. You know, Jake keeps rising to the occasion. With that being said, Alex Pereira is one of the most up and coming stars in the sport. Arguably going to be could be the greatest MMA fighter of all time. If he transitions over to boxing for even a $50 million payday, I mean, he can really tarnish that legacy. Now, don't get me wrong. I'd love to see him go over there and beat Jake Paul up to show him that, hey, look, we do have guys that can box as well. But at the end of the day, you know, Jake knows that that's not going to happen. So, you know, it's a great call out. The guy's genius, man. He's a marketing genius, and he's shown it over and over and over. And that's one of his biggest success points, is his marketing skills. You know, his YouTube marketing, his fight marketing, his boxing marketing. Like, the guy's genius. And all I can say is I'm a hater only because I'm jealous.
Fair. I love the honesty. And another thing I want to end on before we move on to topic number 2, Jake Paul said to Mike Perry in the ring, if you watch the audio, it's on this video as well that I played at the beginning or earlier on. And he does say to Mike Perry, all right, what do you want to do next? We can run it again in MMA or bare knuckle. And Mike Perry is like, let's do it. I'm down. So Jake Paul is saying, again, he already offered the fight to Nate Diaz. He's saying he'll go to MMA or bare knuckle. I mean, is that something you're interested in seeing, Jake Paul against Mike Perry in bare knuckle or MMA?
Yeah, I'd like to see Jake Paul versus Mike Perry in bare knuckle. And the reason is because although, man, when you don't have gloves on, dude, it makes a world of difference. When you're tying up, I think Mike would do a much better job because, again, like we've talked in the past, he can use his wrestling. He can feint low, 3-2, clinch, and then punch from the clinch. Jake is unfamiliar with that. Once you get in a clinch in boxing, the referee typically breaks you up. In bare knuckle, you can have an overhook and use your right hand. I can have a left overhook and use my right hand to punch, or a right overhook or an underhook and jockey from there. And when Mike Perry hits Jake Paul in the mouth one time, he might knock all his teeth out. Look what he did to Luke Rockhold, man. And I think it'd just be a different game. With that being said, the ring is a lot smaller in bare knuckle than the boxing ring they were in. So the angles are going to be different for Jake to run away. I don't know if he'd be able to use his jab. Hey, maybe he comes through and just jabs his way to a big win over, or maybe breaks his hand, because, again, in that fight, when he rocked or when he dropped and rocked Mike Perry, a lot of it was to the top of the head, or some of it was to, like, he threw that overhand right and he'd hit him like right here. You do that in bare knuckle, you're going to shatter your hand. And you know so I mean there's all these different things that could happen, different ways it could go. I think Jake Paul going over to bare knuckle would be a huge testament of how great of a fighter he really is, and he really wants to test his boundary. Going against Nate Diaz in MMA, I think he gets submitted relatively easily. But again, we have that size discrepancy. That size, Nate is a welterweight, man. He could go to 155 if he wanted to. There's just a huge size discrepancy. When you get a big guy on top of you that knows kind of what he's doing, he can give you problems. So, man, Jake, dude, I've really grown. Jake Paul's really grown on me over the last couple of years. I am a hater, only because I'm jealous. You know, it's like, fuck, I put my whole life in this since I was 9 years old, man. And this guy he can make, you know, a million times more than I can in 4 years. And I've been doing it for almost 20 years. And that's the hater in me, you know, but overall, I think he's doing a really good job.
Okay, so just quickly going to respond to Anakin's quick comments. Why do you think I think he says why? It meant why. Why do you think Jake is not fighting boxers like he did with Tommy Fury again? He actually did. He fought 2 boxers back to back with pretty decent records. It's in the video that I made, why everybody should, you know, why Jake Paul deserves our respect. So you can see he did fight those 2 boxers and he won pretty cleanly. Now, are they amazing boxers? No. But for somebody at his record level, where he's only had at this point, I think 11 professional fights, they're right on par with what most traditional boxers do. Then he decided to go back and I guess take this Mike Tyson fight, probably because it's such a spectacle. So many people are talking about it, and they got the deal with Netflix. So, I mean, I think it makes sense. And once again, he's his own promoter. If he's going to make boatloads of money for these kind of different type of fights that go a different avenue, I think why not? And the other thing that Anakin is asking, he's fighting older guys every fight. I mean, Mike Perry's not that much older than him. He's 4 years older than him. He's 31. He's still, I think, relatively in his prime. But yeah, okay, fair point with Mike Tyson. I think my only answer to that is if I was in Jake Paul's position and you're getting a chance to fight one of the basically the greatest boxer of all time. I think a lot of people argue that Mike Tyson is the greatest boxer of all time, and his record got a little bit marred because he wasn't training properly at the end of his career. He didn't have proper guidance. He was getting into all sorts of stuff. But I think a lot of people will say that he's the greatest. So if you had the opportunity to do that and do it on Netflix, first ever boxing event on Netflix, I mean, why not? You'd have to, I mean, what Jake Paul is pulling off is, I was talking to my buddy about this on Saturday night, and I get it, right? You're saying you're jealous and you're just being open and honest about it. We had dinner with another friend of ours and we said, are you watching this fight? He's like, man, I just don't want to watch anything Jake Paul does because he's picking his opponents and this and that. Okay, I get that. But again, remember, he's not, he is just a regular guy in a lot of ways. Kind of that's why I relate to him. He's just a regular guy that loved martial arts and loved boxing, got into it, and now is elevated to this level where people are asking him that he needs to be fighting boxers his age and his level. I mean, that's basically saying that they're accepting him now as a true and tried professional boxer, and he's risen to that level in just 4 short years. And that's wild to me. And I think that lends to this idea that, hey, he's put in the work. He deserves what he's got, and that's it. So it's pretty incredible what he's done. Yeah, go for it.
I want to be on the contrary to that. I disagree with you. I don't look at him as a regular guy. Regular guys have to work a 9 to 5. Regular guys have families. Regular guys have real jobs. This guy has unlimited time, unlimited money. He can hire the best coaches in the world. He can hire the best nutritionists in the world. He can hire the best doctors in the world. He can get the best steroids in the world. He gets the best recovery in the world. Normal guys like you or I don't get that. We got to work our job, and then we got to go train. This guy wakes up. He has a fucking doctor to give him his juice because, I mean, let's just be honest. He's juiced up. There's no question about it. He's getting juiced up. Then he goes and trains. All right, I'm working with, Olympic champion at 11 o'clock, and then Olympic champion boxer, an offensive boxer. And then at noon, I'm going to work with an Olympic champion defensive boxer. Then I'm going to work with Floyd Mayweather at 4 o'clock. And then I'm going to work with Mike Tyson. You know what I mean? Like, he has unlimited resources that he can afford every day. All of his life. He has unlimited time. He has unlimited recovery. So when you say that, oh, I'd look at him as a normal guy, I don't look at him like that. I look at him as a guy that has the last 4 years of his life. You know, if you said, okay, hey, look, I want to be a professional fighter now, and we dedicate the next 4 years of your life to training, what does your training revolve around?
If I were to do it right now, you're
right
saying?
now, tomorrow we start training. What does your training revolve around?
Oh, you mean around my business?
Around your business.
Yeah,
hey,
yeah.
I can't. Hey, why did we start today at 2 o'clock, not 1:30? Because you had a client from 1 to 2. And your
Right.
work comes first over this, over everything. Your work
Right.
comes first over fighting because that's how you pay your bills. But this guy has a plethora of amount of money from his being a YouTube sensation, being a TV star. So he doesn't have to worry about that. So if he wants to go at 1:30, we can go at 1:30. He has to, I got to go at 2 o'clock. He can go. He can schedule his. And I know that sounds like a small deal, but in the grand scheme of things, it's fucking huge. It's huge, and he can do whatever he wants, whenever he wants, and he has the money to do it. He doesn't have to. He's not worried like, oh fuck, man, if I train at 2 o'clock, am I going to be able to afford my mortgage? Absolutely not. Everything he has is bought and paid for. And his doctors are showing that everyone's coming to him to give him things. Average people, that doesn't happen. Sponsors are reaching out. Hey, man, I want to send you $1 million to wear our watch. I want to send you $1 million to drink our protein shake. I want to send you $10 million to use Prime as your backup. That doesn't happen for ordinary people, normal people. I understand watching your video, you're talking about the Midwestern type that, being from Ohio and stuff. Yeah, that makes sense. But normal people don't have the advantages Jake Paul has.
Yeah, and I think that's a totally fair point. It's such a tricky situation, right? To think about it in the context of everything he's achieved. Like, and by the way, it's not like he's taken his family money or his parents' money. That's all money that he made on his own.
Yeah, absolutely,
right?
Absolutely.
But you're right. It's a fair point that I guess he has resources that like 99% or more of fighters.
He has more resources than I have. And that's fucking insane. And dude, I've been in the Extreme Tour for 15 years. It's, it's like I was talking to my son last night. Like, I have unlimited amount of resource. Hey, you want to be a professional football player? Oh, I have Jerome Sapp, who played he was a captain for the Colts. I can link you up with him. Oh, you want to be a wrestler? Oh, fuck. Well, I have Jake Shields. I have Ben Askren comes to Extreme Couture. I have Randy Couture, Olympic champion. Oh, you want to be a guitar player? You want to play in a band? Oh, Chris Cale, who I just worked with. He's the bass player for Five Finger Death Punch. Like, anything my son wants to do, I have resources to give to him to help him achieve those goals. But those guys don't come to me. I can reach out to them. Those guys will be coming to Jake to be like, hey, let me help you. So it's just, you know what I mean? Like, anyways, moving on.
Yeah, no, I totally get you. Well, hey, on the topic, this is the perfect segue into topic number 2, which is Michael Bisping is continuing to hate on Jake Paul. Okay. And let's play this little clip, because this is like, okay, there was a live stream that I watched. I couldn't find this clip in time, but there on the live stream, there was a point where Bisping was going off again on Jake Paul, like reacting in real time, and his wife comes down and she's like, well, he's like, yeah, this Jake Paul guy, it's just embarrassment and blah, blah. She's like, yeah, but maybe you might be able to give him some credit because he's done this and that. Like, she actually kind of checked him on it, and he's like, well, I guess. Yeah, no, look, fair play to him. And like, she made him kind of turn around a little bit, but I couldn't find that clip. But here's another clip of him kind of making this summary video and saying what he says about Jake Paul. And then we're going to hear Greg Paul, Jake Paul's dad, respond. So check this out.
Right. Well done. Well done to Jake Paul, if that's what you want to see. That was a farce. That was ridiculous. That fight should have never even taken place in the first place because it was a shit show. Jake Paul was by far the bigger guy. And as I said, there's weight classes for a reason. Now, okay, Jake Paul grinds my gears. Let's be honest. He does because of all the shit talk, or how great he thinks that he is. Okay, but then he cherry picks these opponents that are way smaller and less experienced. I've said that point a million times, so I'm not going to repeat myself. Jake Paul got the job done, and he looked okay.
He's like, he has such a hard time giving him any compliment or any credibility. But like, all right. And by the way, okay, not to give Bisping too much crap, but he did say that he thought that Jake Paul made a mistake by choosing Mike Perry as the opponent. So he wasn't talking about weight class. I'm just saying, he was like, I think he made a mistake. I think Mike Perry is going to be tougher than he thinks. And I think he might lose and mess up this entire Mike Tyson fight. And then now he's coming around. And this is the constant thing with Jake Paul. People hate him so much that it's almost like it warps their thinking from one second to the next, and they just want to keep. So anyways, let me just throw that out there. Now, I'm going to turn it over to Greg Paul, Jake Paul's dad, and I want to play his response, and then I want to get your thoughts, Justin, on all of this drama. So check this out.
I'm kind of curious what Michael Bisping has to say, because that motherfucker is always giving Jake shit. Oh, fair play. Okay, he's a good man, but he can't fight.
Good accent.
Blah, blah. Well, fuck you, Bisping. Yeah, fucking what now? And he's like, oh, saying Perry's going to pick him apart. So what now? What's his, where are you going to stand on that? And I'm just proud as fuck. I mean, Jake is boxing right now. He is bringing boxing back. In 20 years from now, people will be going, Jake Paul saved boxing. And not only is he saving boxing, but he's saving a lot of other kids that are following in his footsteps that want to box. And it's awesome. I mean, my wife and I were sitting at the bar today and having a sandwich, and people coming up, hey, are you Jake's dad? You know, I want to get pictures, and they're like, he's great, and blah, blah, blah. And it's just unbelievable what he's doing. And
okay. So Justin, let me turn it over to you. First of all, yeah, tell us your thoughts about this going back and forth and Michael Bisping.
Michael Bisping, all right, love the guy. Former UFC champion, all right. He's made a small percentage of what Jake Paul has made in the last 4 years. Dude, Michael Bisping, I can see it. I can see the emotion in his heart, and I think I can see it different from you because I'm a fighter too. And again, I'm not throwing shade at you, Josefa.
Yeah.
But dude, this guy is a hater because Michael Bisping put his whole life, his whole family, his whole career behind fighting, and he's only made a small percentage of what Jake is doing. And Michael Bisping has fought the best of the best of the best. He's been knocked out brutally by Dan Henderson. You know, he got dropped. He should have been knocked out by Anderson Silva. And now you got this kid coming in here that's put 4 years behind, that's made more than Michael Bisping, more than me, more than you put together in one fight, than guys that have dedicated our whole life to this. And that's what people need to understand. MMA fighters hate on Jake Paul, not because of him. It's just because he has an easier route. And you know what? And I disagree with Greg. Jake Paul isn't saving boxing. MMA fighters are saving boxing, because if MMA fighters don't transition to boxing, who's Jake Paul going to fight? He's going to fight an unknown boxer that nobody knows and nobody's going to tune in. The only reason I watched the fight because it was Mike Perry. I don't give a fuck about Tommy Fury. I didn't watch that fight. I didn't give a fuck about any of that shit. The only time I tune into Jake Paul is when he's fighting an MMA fighter. So when Greg says, "Oh, Jake Paul's saving boxing," he's not saving boxing. He's contributing to it, of course. But us MMA fighters are going to tune into all these fights because we want to see the MMA guy win and shut Jake Paul up. You know, that's what we all want to see. As much as I respect Jake, I'm so fucking jealous. And Michael Bisping, you can see it in his face. You can see it as an emotion. Like, I can see it in his heart. Like, man, I put my whole life behind this sport, and I'll never even come close to making in my whole career what he's making in one fight. Jake Paul probably made $50 million in that fight. Michael Bisping's probably made $5 million in his whole career, if that even. So I can understand why, because I feel the same way. Dude, I mean, I was making 50,000, 25 and 25 when I was in the UFC at my peak. At 50 grand. Jake Paul just made 100 times that in 8 minutes, going against a guy that he was definitely more skilled than, that he was bigger than, and he was in better shape. You know, it's like, I understand what we're handpicking opponents, and that's when, like, Michael Bisping's talking about, you know, oh, he's handpicking his opponents, and then he thought, oh, well, Mike Perry, because in our head, we know Mike Perry's a dog. Mike Perry just fucking knocked Luke Rockhold's teeth out. He knows he's a tough fighter. So even though that Jake had, on paper, he has the distinct advantage, the size advantage, the strength advantage, the youth advantage, the less damage advantage, you know, because the less miles, you know, he is, you know, like, that stuff matters. But in the back of our mind, like, dude, but yeah, fucking Mike Perry's a fucking dog. He can scrap, he can fight. So we give credit where it's due because Mike has done some incredible things. But at the end of the day, you know, dude, I'm just so jealous of Jake Paul, and I'm going to keep reiterating it because, again, when you dedicate your life to something, as I have, as Michael has, as Tyrone Woodley has, and you get as high as your attributes let you go, or maybe it's your financial situation. You know, I tell you what, if I had $100 million in the bank and I didn't have to worry about going holding mitts for somebody for 3 hours, or, you know, doing wrestling class, and I could just focus on my diet, nutrition, hey, maybe my career would have went a lot better. You know, I'm sure there's days that I took off of training because, fuck, man, I got clients from 9 o'clock to 1 o'clock. Maybe I'll do a mitt session from 1 to 2. I'll break for 2 hours. Then I have to clients from 5 to 8. I mean, that's happened when I was in the UFC. It's happened when I was on the undercard coming up. You know, and it's just, I think when these MMA fighters are talking about their hate towards Jake Paul, I think it's just an internal self-reflection of just being genuinely, what's the word I'm looking for?
Almost feeling that like inequity, I guess.
Jealous.
Like, yeah.
We're just jealous, dude. We're just
Yeah.
jealous because you watch Michael Bisping's story. You know, he started off fighting at an early age. That doesn't make you money or under early age. So he continued to fight. Jake Paul had a different career. He had a YouTube career, and he had an incredible YouTube career that's made him rich and famous. Now he's transitioning. He's bowling these MMA fighters over. Like I said, I reiterate, I disagree with Greg. I don't think Jake Paul's going to save boxing because once MMA fighters stop transitioning over to boxing for these big paydays, they're going to lose the whole MMA. Boxing isn't gaining fans by watching these cards. Like MMA
Right.
fighters, like, wow, boxing is really cool. Like, I'm gonna watch the next boxing match. No, there's like, I mean, name
So
who's
true.
it's so true that nobody's gonna do
Yeah.
that because MMA is the real deal. MMA is fighting. Boxing
Yeah.
is not fighting to me. Boxing is boxing.
Yeah.
Kickboxing is kickboxing. MMA is fighting. Fighting to me is everything. Elbows, knees, hands, feet, wrestling, takedown, submission. Like boxing is boxing, and it's great. And I think there's an art to it. There's no question there's an art to it, but it's not true fighting. That's like when I'm coaching grappling and people are like, oh, he has a fight at this time. It's like, dude, it's not a fucking fight. It's a grappling match. You know what I mean? I hate when people, fighting is not boxing. Fighting is not kickboxing. Fighting is MMA, mixed martial arts. And Jake Paul is doing an incredible job on the boxing scene. You know, and more power to him, dude. And, you know, like I said, we're just jealous. All the MMA fighters are just jealous, man. I wish I had opportunities like Jake Paul has.
So that's a really good perspective, I think, especially for people like me who are looking at it maybe from a different vantage point. But yeah, I that makes a lot of sense. People like Michael Bisping, like yourself, like a lot of folks have gone through all these crazy trials and tribulations, hoops you have to jump through, and then maybe you're seeing this crazy ascension in 4 years. And you mentioned he made 100 times more. It'd actually be 1,000 times more, right? 50,000 times.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, 1,000 is 50 million. So that's wild. If that is the case, I don't know.
And that's at my peak. That's the best I ever made. You know what I mean?
Right.
And his first fight, his first boxing match against that basketball player, he probably made $1 million. His second
Sure.
fight, you know, Ben
Yeah.
Askren, probably $1 million.
Yeah.
Tyrone
for sure.
Woodley, you know what I mean? Like he's making over millions and millions and millions and millions. And the only reason MMA fighters are tuning in is because an MMA fighter is fighting. If it's another boxer, no one's going to tune in.
That's true. It's 100% true. Yeah, he's kind of like a vampire of the UFC in a way, just kind of doing, you know, stealing the clout to some degree of a lot of these fighters.
Well,
So
all these great MMA fighters have this huge fan base. Tyrone Woodley, you know, former UFC champion. I'm a fan of Tyrone Woodley. I watched both fights. I didn't watch it to watch Jake Paul. I watched it to watch Tyrone Woodley. I don't give a fuck about Jake Paul. I care about being a fan of Tyrone Woodley. I want to support Tyrone Woodley. So I want to watch it. I want him to have views. Anderson Silva, one of the greatest, in my opinion, one of the greatest middleweights of all time. For that era, dude, he had like 16. He was on a 16-fight win streak in the UFC. That's like insane, dude. And I tuned in to watch that fight because it was Anderson Silva. I don't give a fuck about Jake Paul. And Anderson Silva's whole fan base, the whole country of Brazil, tuned into that fight to watch Anderson Silva. They didn't tune in to watch Jake Paul. So Jake Paul's doing an incredible marketing job of picking these guys with huge fan bases from different countries almost. Well, Anderson Silva being from a different country. You know, Mike Perry's obviously not from a different country. Actually, he's from Michigan. And, you know, the whole Mike Perry fan, the whole BKFC fan base tuned in to watch that fight. The whole MMA fan base tuned in to watch that fight. He hit three markets. Boxing tuned in to watch Jake Paul. Bare knuckle tuned in to watch Mike Perry. MMA tuned in to watch Mike Perry. And that's 3 times the amount of revenue that in other ways. Or not revenue, but views and shit.
Views, right. Absolutely. Okay. Very interesting. Let's move on to now. We're still talking about the Jake Paul fight, but another aspect about this fight, which is that after the fight, apparently Conor McGregor was not too happy with Mike Perry's performance and proceeded to supposedly fire him from BKFC, which I thought was just kind of funny because, I mean, look, what's the relationship with, you know, Conor McGregor is kind of saying that he's the owner and whatnot. Well, he's an investor. He's not I mean, yeah, I guess he's got an ownership stake, but it's just like any business. You don't invest into a business as an angel investor or whatnot, and then suddenly have hiring and firing power that's usually set up in the HR department, or maybe the CEO handles that or this and that. It's just like, I don't know. It's just kind of a joke. I thought it was totally just silliness when it first was announced, but then Conor McGregor seems to be doubling down that no, Mike Perry's actually released. I'm sure it's not true. It doesn't make any sense. But anyways, I just thought we could talk about this really quickly. So here's some of the tweets. This is ridiculous. Jake Paul is the biggest piss bag I've ever seen in my life. 40-pound weight difference, juiced out of his head, and still whatever himself there. Nikisa, you should take him to Vegas. Oh, that's right. You could never. The athletic commission testing, real fighting. You could never. And then calling out 6-year-old Mike Tyson fresh off an in-flight medical emergency. I swear to God, most valuable piss bag. So he kind of goes off on him there. And then We have another response. Hold on. Let me close this. Let me get the next one up. So then the saga continues. And so it says, hey, Mike, you're released and you can go and compete in your smelly, dirty boxing championship thing. The smell of it. I don't know what he's talking about with this dirty boxing thing. I think it might be some other promotional organization that he's involved in. But anyways, Conor McGregor continues to double down. Terrence McKinney responds, we're not going to go into that. But anyways, it's just kind of a funny thing that Conor McGregor seems to be getting so triggered by this. Let me ask you a question before forget about the hiring and firing power, because I think that's just a farce. Obviously, Conor McGregor is just being silly. But I mean, do you think it makes sense that Conor McGregor, who seemed to be all about this fight, was giving Mike Perry props, and now he's turning on him because he lost? I mean, what are your thoughts about this? Do you think Conor's totally being ridiculous, or do you think he has some legs to stand on? Like, hey, maybe Mike Perry shouldn't have taken this fight if you're trying to build up BKFC.
I mean, I can see it from a business standpoint. I mean, everyone thought, Mike Perry was going to lose. The fight went exactly how, 90% of people thought, including you and I, thought how it was going to go. But you got to look at the payday. And as a fighter, sometimes, I mean, Mike Perry probably in his head thought he could knock him out. But after that first round, realizing the size and reach advantage, that he was in for a rough night. But at the end of the day, he's laughing all the way to the bank, man, because he collected a huge paycheck. Mike Perry also had a retort to Conor McGregor. I don't know if you saw it in his interview. He's like, you can't fire me. I'm part owner as well. So obviously he's not getting fired. I think it's just, Conor, I understand why Conor did it, but at the end of the day, Mike Perry needs to look out for the best for himself and where he's going to make the most money. And I know he's getting paid really well in BKFC, but I'm sure he collected a $1 million at least $1 million payday going to fight Jake Paul and losing.
Now, everybody hates on the UFC for not letting them want to do boxing matches or different things where they can lose because, hey, the UFC should give them more freedom. But it's the UFC's perspective is protecting their brand. It's the same way they don't want to see their former champions get knocked out by Jake Paul because it can eventually harm the brand of like, hey, the UFC is the baddest people on the planet, but now Jake Paul is beating them up, right? And this is indirectly, I think, what Conor is alluding to is maybe it's also a bit of ego thing because Jake Paul's talked so much smack about him, but he's like, hey, we put one of our fighters in, and then it's our main guy. This is our BKFC champ, the guy who's throttling the organization forward, and now he's losing to Jake Paul. So I think it's kind of like a similar thing that the UFC has been criticized for over and over. And by the way, Conor did respond. Just one quick thing, and then I'm going to turn it back over to you. Conor did respond to that statement of Mike Perry saying he's also an owner. Conor responded. I just couldn't find the tweet. He might have deleted it. But he's like, yeah, you're an owner, but your percentage is so tiny that it's nothing. He's like, I have a much bigger stake. And yes, you are definitely fired still. And you got to get a move, something like that. So he like tripled down on this. But anyways, let me turn it back over to you. I mean, yeah, they're trying to protect their brand and the reputation. So losing against Jake Paul maybe harms it. But then at the end of the day, it is a different sport. Mike Perry should be able to go back and I don't think it takes any damage really to his brand. But I mean, do you feel differently?
I don't. I mean, I do feel differently. Yeah, I think boxing and bare knuckle are two different things. Mike Perry has shown himself time and time again. He's beaten UFC champions in bare knuckle multiple times. But you talked about how he's one of the biggest stars in BKFC. Yes, he is. But there's a guy we're forgetting about. There's a bigger guy. He's bigger. He's stronger. His name's Lorenzo Hunt. Oh, yeah. And, I tell you what, I think that would have been, I mean, Mike Perry has a bigger name than Lorenzo Hunt, but Lorenzo Hunt is a fucking dog. And I tell you what, he keeps going up. I think he's like the 185-pound champ. He's the 205-pound champ. I believe he was going for the heavyweight championship in BKFC, and it didn't work out. But I know he's an incredible fighter. What about Lorenzo Hunt, man? That would be a great matchup. A bigger guy than Mike Perry, a bigger, stronger guy. I think that would have been a better route for the BKFC to go. But Mike deserves it, dude. He deserves the payday. He's putting so much, he has such a great fan base that I think it's great. But I don't think Mike Perry is fired from the BKFC.
All right. Moving on now back to mixed martial arts stuff. We've done enough focusing on this one-off boxing match of Jake Paul. Gave him his shine, gave him his due. But now we're going to start talking about UFC 304, which is this Saturday, which is going to be amazing. We talked a little bit last week about Leon versus Bilal. We chopped up part of our show and released it as a standalone video. Apparently, a lot of people don't like Bilal because Justin went on a rant about Bilal, why whatever. He wants to see him lose and this and that. And a lot of people are watching that video and giving us their thoughts. So that's kind of interesting. So we're not going to talk about that again right off the jump. We're going to instead go on to what's it called? We're going to go on to Bobby Green versus Paddy the Baddy. Oh, we did get a comment from Dean Ali. Said no one is even watching this. Yeah, well, that's why we're on the grind. That's why we're trying to do shows twice a week and stay consistent so more people watch. Where you're watching it, I don't know. Tell us what you think. If you think we suck, give it to us. We'll gladly take it. But anyways, all right, back to Bobby Green versus Paddy the Baddy. Now, before the show today, I actually rewatched because both these guys have fought what's it called? Tony Ferguson. I don't know if you remember that. So I rewatched Bobby Green versus Tony. I rewatched Paddy versus Tony. And I kind of looked at their striking because one of the things that Paddy says is he's like, I'm going to stand and bang with Bobby Green. They think, oh, I'm going to shoot for a takedown. He's like, I think I can outstrike him. One thing you should notice pretty apparently is that Bobby Green definitely is faster when you watch him. I think it's a decent way to compare the two. Maybe not the best, but you can see the speed differential with Bobby Green versus Paddy Pimblett. But Paddy Pimblett's striking looked pretty good, I think, against Tony Ferguson. One of his issues that people have touched on time and again is his lack of head movement and kind of how he stands with his chin straight up. But his striking is pretty crisp. He did hit him with a flurry of like different kicks and punches, and I thought he was doing some interesting things on the feet. But Justin, I mean, how do you see this matchup going? Do you think that Paddy is and will stand up and bang with Bobby Green, or you think that's a mistake?
I don't think it's a mistake, but it's not the right route to victory. You know, Bobby Green has incredible striking. He has great power. You know, he can knock Paddy out if he catches him right. You know, I think that Paddy will have the advantage on the ground. I'd like to see him push him up into the cage. You know, gas Bobby's arms out, get Bobby talking shit, but gas him enough to where he can't talk shit in the third round. I think that's the route to victory for Paddy, and obviously the route for Bobby Green is to keep it on the feet, talk shit, get in his head, and counterpunch. Bobby is very, very fast, but with this being said, he's getting older, he's getting up there in age, and that's something that we need to talk about. You know, like these guys that, you know, the UFC is kind of giving him the older guys. You know, yes. Bobby Green, I think he's ranked top 15. I think he's ranked 15 exactly.
He is.
And
15.
you know, I think that's a great step up for Paddy. Okay, he wants to break in the top 15. Here's his chance, and I think that's a perfect opponent. It's a guy that's kind of going on the downfall. You know, he's getting older. He has a lot of miles on him, and if Paddy can, you know, he put it against a true vet, Tony Ferguson, who was on like a 12-fight win streak in the UFC, and now he's going to go against Bobby Green, who's a little bit quicker, a little bit crisper. So you know, see if he can rise to the challenge.
And Bobby Green, by the way, will be 1 month away from turning 38 in this fight. So yeah, just another point, referring back to like what you're talking about with the age difference. And obviously Paddy the Baddy is quite young. I think he's barely even 30. Let me just double check. But he's obviously younger, probably the fresher fighter, etc. But this is going to be cool. And I gotta say, he's only 29. He's still not even 30. I kind of want to see Paddy win, even though I think we're both big fans of Bobby Green. I like Paddy the Baddy. I know he's taken a lot of smack and a lot of crap from Ariel, from people hating on him about his reaction to the Jared Gordon fight. He's a young guy. He's brash. He's probably said some things he shouldn't have said. And he said that. He's admitted that he made some mistakes. He shouldn't have come out the way that he did, saying he should get a fight night bonus and all this stuff. And I think he's had to deal with a lot of crap from the fans for a long time. But hey, man, I think he's probably learned from it. He's come through the fire. He's still willing to fight. He still has aspirations to be in the top 15, top 10, top 5, and still go for that title shot. Let's see what he's got. I think this is a good test, and I can't wait for it. I think UFC 304 is banging. And speaking of 304, we're going to move on to our last topic, which is not the main event, but the co-main event. And this is a very interesting fight. Because remember, what have people been saying for months now, for maybe almost a year, that not a year, but that John Jones is ducking Tom Aspinall, all this stuff, and how John Jones is just a coward, and people are just going so off on the deep end, which is ridiculous, in my opinion. I'll still stand by that, because you could say the same thing about Leon. Oh, is Leon dodging Shavkat? No, but Bilal is the next in line. And in this, we can say the same thing. In my opinion, he's going to fight Bilal, and then he'll probably fight Shavkat, or eventually he'll fight Shavkat, right? He's not ducking him. It's the same thing with John Jones. They had the fight queued up with Stipe. Stipe wants to fight. They've signed on the dotted line. They had some injuries. This fight needs to happen. Fine. But what happens? Nobody's even thinking about this possibility. What happens if Curtis Blaydes wins against Tom Aspinall? He won the first time. Granted, it was a fluke injury. But, you know, just on that sentiment, Justin, let me turn it over to you. you know, what are the odds, in your opinion, that Blaydes can pull this off?
Dude, I'll be honest. I don't know. I took Blaydes in the first go around, with the knee injury. I remember it really well. It happened really fast in the first round. So we didn't really get to see what happens, man. This is a coin flip fight. You look at Curtis Blaydes. This guy is a tough, gritty, strong wrestler. When I say strong, I don't mean strong. I mean, he's probably almost as strong as me. So, like, we're just going to get that out there right now. Tom Aspinall, rising star. People are saying he should be the UFC champion. This is Curtis Blaydes. I think Curtis doesn't get enough credit because of his style, because he's that really gritty wrestler. Like, he gets in there and he mauls guys. And some people don't like that in the sport. And I think that's why people don't give enough credit to his name. This is a dangerous fight for Tom Aspinall. If Curtis Blaydes can get him down 1, 2, 3 times, especially through that fight, I mean, we could have Curtis Blaydes winning this fight. Now, if Curtis Blaydes wins this fight, does that mean he fights John Jones next? If John Jones beats Stipe, which we all know is going to happen, or we all assume is going to happen.
Yeah, it's a high likelihood. I don't know. I don't think people have thought this through whatsoever. They're just assuming Aspinall's going to steamroll Curtis Blaydes and that John Jones is going to continue to quote unquote duck him, which is, again, as I said before many times, ridiculous. I'm going to make a whole video talking about this exactly and breaking it down so people maybe can change their minds and stop giving John Jones so much crap. If you want to give anybody crap, give it to the UFC, but not John Jones. John Jones signed a contract and is agreeing to a fight that the UFC is putting before him. By the way, if he all of a sudden switched it up to Tom Aspinall, that would be him ducking Stipe, but nobody would probably say that. But that's not fair. I don't know. The whole thing is ridiculous. But yeah, I think this is a really interesting fight, and people have counted out Curtis Blaydes, I think, unfairly. Let's just quickly take a look at Curtis Blaydes. Do you know how old Curtis Blaydes is, by the way?
I do not.
He's only 33.
Oh, wow.
Look,
okay. So he still has a couple years.
Right? Don't you feel like everybody's just writing him off like I don't even know. It's a very bizarre thing. He's young, man. For heavyweight, he's probably just entering his prime. I mean, I don't know. I know you always say it's about the miles and different things, but also let's look at his record. Who has he really lost to? Sergey Pavlovich. He lost to Derek Lewis way back in 2021, but he's pretty much 4 or 5 for his last. Again, we have the weird fight with Tom Aspinall, but he's 4 or 5 in those. He beat Alexander Volkov. Volkov just beat Pavlovich. Volkov is so dangerous. Junior Dos Santos. I mean, look at this record. So he is not somebody to be taken lightly. I know that there's so much hype, and Tom Aspinall is such a phenomenal fighter that most people are feeling like Aspinall is going to pull this off, but I think it's to be seen. I think it's a great matchup. So this is a super exciting one that we both cannot wait for this Saturday. All right, guys. That's pretty much it. That takes us to the end of our topics for today. We're going to be back on Friday after the weigh-ins. We might be coming to you live straight from Montana, so that should be super fun. But we'll talk about UFC 304 in more detail with the weigh-ins to talk about as well, to give us more perspective on who we think is going to come out victorious. If you guys haven't given this video a like yet and you're watching it, we'd appreciate a like. That helps us tremendously as we're trying to grow. We gained some more subscribers this week, so that's super fun. And if you haven't clicked subscribe yet and you want to join along in this journey, make sure to click that subscribe button. Thank you guys so much for joining, and we will see you in the next episode. Take it easy.